Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Buffalo Forum, where we talk about the world's most pressing issues. I'm Gunner Hebrlee, and today I'm joined by Maggie Unruh and Mary Lynn Buckley. Good evening.
Hey, Gunner.
Hello.
Today we are going to be talking about the debate season's resolution, which is resolved. The United States federal government should substantially increase its non-military exploration and or development of the Earth's oceans. We're going to get started off with Mary Lynn's first affirmative speech.
American Senator Cory Booker once said, "For an economy built to last, we must invest in what will fuel us for generations to come." This is our history, from the Transcontinental Railroad to the Hoover Dam, to the dredging of the ports and the building of our most historic bridges. Our American ancestors prioritized growth and investment in our nation's infrastructure. Unfortunately, we have let this important investment in infrastructure falter in regards to U.S. ports. Our ports are overwhelmed, inefficient, and harming our economy. Fortunately, there's a simple solution. I propose building 6 offshore ports according to the recommendations of the Portness Project. This will cost $60 billion and will be funded through public-private partnerships. The ports will take 2 years to build. We see this recommendation come from Frank Martin, the European representative for Float Inc. in an August 10, 2014 presentation. He states that these ports would be in the ocean about 20 to 40 miles offshore, and they would provide a potential benefit to the U.S. economy because we can improve our supply chain logistics. These 6 ports would specifically be built in Seattle, Washington, Oakland, California, Los Angeles, Long Beach, California, the Gulf of Mexico zone, the state of Georgia, and the state of New York. It's estimated that they will cost $60 billion to build with an annual economic and tariff benefit of about $5.3 billion per year, meaning they'd be paid back within 23 years. Specifically, Hank Glosser writes in a September 29, 2014 article that this would increase domestic jobs and move freight more efficiently. Because it couples the most efficient way to move goods internationally, which is ultra-large container ships, and the most efficient way to move goods domestically, that would be short sea shipping. Implementation and investment for improvements occurs at relatively few offshore ports, instead of duplicating the investment at all major ports in the U.S. And additionally, there would be government revenue estimated of about $2 billion per year because we could accurately assess the goods imported into our country. Once again, I propose following the recommendations of the Portness Project and building 6 offshore megaports. Funding would be again $60 billion and it would only take 2 years to complete.
All right, thank you, Mary Lynn. That was very insightful. Now, Maggie, I believe you have a few questions for Mary Lynn.
Yeah, sure. All of the articles that you read are talking about how this is a really great idea. But if it's such a great idea, why hasn't this happened yet?
It hasn't come to the attention of our policymakers just yet. Everybody thinks that we are doing fine just right now, which is not the case.
Sure, that makes sense. And I guess my last question would be, in the second article you read from Hank Glosser, you talked about how the Portness Project is the most efficient way to move goods. Why is that so?
It links the 2 best way to move goods. The best way to move goods internationally across long distance is huge ships because you get the most bang for your buck. But domestically, the best way to do that is short sea shipping because it requires smaller container ships that can reach almost any port without overwhelming them.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to Maggie's second constructive speech.
While Mary's speech may have compelled you to vote for a change, this would be an unwise decision for 3 basic reasons. First, there is a major lack of cooperation. Second, it will impede trade. But third, there is no great need to invest in port infrastructure now. First, Wendy Kiefer from Campbell University presents an article in 2007 talking about how these giant megaports, like proposed by Mary, would fail for a few reasons. First, there's a major lack of cooperation within the port security, within port officials. But secondly, there is difficulty with machine maintenance because of the large machinery as well as new technology. But finally, it is difficult to operate with such a large port where there's no actual training happening. Since we have a multitude of smaller ports around coastal cities now, there's nothing to base their training off of. However, that's not the only reason we shouldn't make a change. The Homeland Security Newswire writes an article in 2014 that discusses how increasing cargo screening will impede trade and commerce, and it won't actually provide any substantial benefits. First, it's going to substantially slow down the flow of trade because it adds an additional step needed before ships can go out. This article goes on to talk about how it's not a good plan for taxpayer resources because it increases the cost to consumers and doesn't actually provide a lot of security benefits. This means that it's going to increase your taxes and increase the cost on goods that you actually pay for. Finally, it's been said, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And this saying holds true when considering port investments, because according to Henry Rand from the Corporation Office of External Affairs in 2014, current layered approaches to port security actually solve best. They do this for a few reasons. First, they keep our ports safe. But second, they still help and support the economy. And finally, they are able to maximize efficient deployment of resources against terrorism. This article goes on to talk about how a risk-based system creates the best balance of interdiction capability, deterrence, as well as the minimal disruption of trade. These random inspections that only consider the risk-based containers is the best way to solve because it doesn't waste money and doesn't slow down our trade. For the three reasons outlined above, first, a major lack of cooperation, second, a major impediment to trade, and third, the fact that our current ports are doing good right now are three reasons to vote against this proposed idea.
All right, thank you, Maggie. That was very informative. Do you have a couple of questions for Mary?
I do. The first question is, why can't we just train our employees while we're building these ports?
Sure. There's probably two good reasons why this would be difficult. First, it's going to take extra time and money, but secondly, there's still nothing to base their training off of because they're currently just small ports, right? They would have to be some kind of transition into a much larger upscale port with the new technology.
Okay. And then my second question is, why is this extra step in cargo so problematic?
Sure. It basically is just going to slow down trade. Right now, the current approach to port security is only checking a few containers that pose a high risk. However, with the proposed idea of screening all containers and making them go through an additional port, it would just take a lot more time.
All right. Both were very valid arguments. I thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to the refutation and concessions of today's arguments.
While Maggie's speech may have cast some doubt in your mind as to the validity of the plan, we'll see that her three arguments aren't necessarily specific to the Portness proposal. First of all, she states that there is no cooperation right now. However, this evidence that she cites is from 2007, and things have improved a lot right now. She then states that we don't have anything to model off of for training employees. But we do have large ports in major cities right now that can provide some understanding. Additionally, we'll have 2 years for our specialists to understand the type of training that these workers will need. Then she states that this extra step in the shipping process will impede trade. However, everything written about this Portness scenario states exactly the opposite, because it will prevent ports from being overwhelmed with huge shipping containers. It allows us to break up these large shipments into smaller, more manageable pieces, and then send them out to ports closer to their final destination, actually improving the efficiency of our trading system. Then she states that there is no great need, because what we're doing right now is fine. However, this argument is specific to the security of the ports and not necessarily their efficiency. If we look to another article written by Hank Glosser on April 1st, 2013, we see that there are major problems with our ports right now. They aren't equipped to deal with the transition of the international shipping fleet. It costs a lot and takes a lot of time to improve ports. There's poor efficiency, environmental impacts, and major transportation issues that need to be addressed. Fortunately, once again, the Portness project can solve this. It would only require $60 billion to build and would be paid back within 23 years. Again, under this scenario, we can not only increase the security of our ports, but improve their efficiency by shifting the burden more equally.
All right. Thank you, Mary Lynn. Maggie, you may continue.
Mary's speech may have reminded you that we need a change. However, there are still major reasons why this is not a good idea. First, there's still the problem of cooperation. She says that there are 2 years that we have time to train the port officials. However, this will be difficult as there's still nothing to base them off of. While there may be larger ports in larger cities, it's going to be nothing like the proposed project. However, that's not the biggest reason we shouldn't make a change. The biggest reason comes from the Homeland Security news article that I read in my last speech, where they talk about how it's going to impede trade and commerce and won't actually provide any of the benefits that Mary claims. It does this for a few reasons. First off, this article just blatantly states that it's not a good use of taxpayer resources. Additionally, it increases the cost to consumers, meaning that not only do you pay $60 billion for 6 ports to be made, but it increases the cost of the goods that are shipped from port to port. Finally, we should remember that because of these reasons and the fact that our ports are doing fine now, there is no need to invest. Actually, the Willis evidence that I read in my last speech talks about how the layered approach to the security system is the best way to solve because it doesn't waste a lot of additional money. At the end of the day, it is easy to vote against the proposed project. This is for the 2 reasons outlined above. First, it costs a lot of money to taxpayers and increases the cost of goods. But second, with this major disadvantage weighing against it, it's easy to stay with the current system, not waste the money, and do what we're doing right now.
All right, thank you, Maggie, and thank you, Mary Lynn, for the arguments you presented today. And who won today's debate? You decide. Tweet us at BBSTV21 and tell us who won today's debate. I'm Gunner Hebrlee with Buffalo TV. Have a great day.